On June 12, 2026, the traditional financial system absorbed the largest liquidity event in market history. SpaceX debuted on the public exchanges under the ticker symbol SPCX. The combined mega corporation raised a record-breaking $75 billion on its first day of trading. That influx of capital pushed the company's total valuation to $2.1 trillion. The towering column represents a net worth of $1.1 trillion, verifying Elon Musk as history's first individual trillionaire. Placed alongside the rest of the tech elite, Page, Brin, Bezos, and Ellison, the gap is clear. The second richest person holds barely 1/4 of his wealth. This concentration of financial sovereignty exceeds the inflation-adjusted empires of the Gilded Age. It represents an individual command of capital that eclipses the peak of the Rockefeller era. The origin of this wealth gap starts in a quiet room in Pretoria, South Africa, glowing with the green light of a Commodore VIC-20 computer. At 12 years old, he programmed a space shooter called Blastar and sold it for $500. He spent his youth escaping a harsh reality through the logic of code and the pages of science fiction. After making his way to North America, he enrolled at Stanford University in 1995. He stayed for 48 hours before recognizing that the early internet offered a faster mechanism to generate capital than academia. His focus shifted toward building the liquid capital necessary for high-scale physical engineering. Every dollar earned in software was destined for hardware, specifically the aerospace goals he had been studying since his youth. Throughout the late 90s, he used early internet ventures as stepping stones. Building and selling software companies provided the initial liquidity required for his larger objectives. The climax of this era arrived when eBay acquired his financial platform PayPal for $1.5 billion. He walked away from the deal with a personal payout of $176 million. Instead of diversifying or retiring, he liquidated his entire fortune to build extremely capital-intensive startups with notoriously high failure rates. He poured $100 million into space transport and injected his remaining millions into an unproven, highly skeptical market for electric vehicles. By late 2008, both companies were nearly out of cash. Tesla was bleeding capital, and SpaceX had watched 3 rockets explode. Musk was days away from total personal bankruptcy. Everything rested on the 4th launch of the Falcon 1. On September 28th, the rocket successfully achieved orbit, keeping the dream of high-scale transport alive. Surviving that crisis validated his strategy of extreme financial exposure. Putting his entire net worth on the line became his primary mechanism for achieving difficult technological milestones. By the 2020s, those risky startups evolved into an interconnected structure known as unified synergy. This network diagram illustrates his modern empire: satellite connectivity, digital town squares, brain-computer interfaces, and artificial intelligence. These function as a closed-loop system, where hardware captures data and AI processes it, directly improving manufacturing efficiency and compounding value across every node. This compounding value is exactly what the public markets priced in during the $75 billion SPCX initial public offering. Investors assigned a $2.1 trillion valuation because they recognized he had assembled the foundational infrastructure needed to run a future civilization. The $1.1 trillion figure verified on that single day of trading immediately forced a recalibration of the global financial order. Analyzing his net worth strictly through the lens of Earth's markets overlooks the logistical scale of his true objective. Moving humanity off-planet requires resources that dwarf the gross domestic product of many nations. Establishing a self-sustaining colony requires moving millions of tons of cargo and building off-world power grids, making it the most capital-intensive endeavor ever conceived. Internal projections suggest that initiating this transition requires a budget rivaling the GDP of a mid-sized nation. The $1.1 trillion represents the precise liquidity needed to fund that colonization. The wealth recorded on June 12, 2026, represents the point where a single private entity possessed the resources to move human life beyond the atmosphere.